called a hungry ranch hand to fix the fence. And what he did shocked the whole ranch. Rebecca Wilson was at her limit when she saw the skinny man standing at the ranch gate. A widow for 2 years, she was struggling alone to maintain the property that had belonged to her husband's family for decades. Bills were piling up, cattle kept escaping through broken fences, and the money to hire ranch hands had run out months ago. The stranger took off his worn-out hat and asked for work in exchange for just a meal. He had a long, unkempt beard and patched-up clothes, but his eyes held a determination that caught her attention. With no other choice, Rebecca agreed to the stranger's offer, never imagining that this decision would change everything in her life. "Ma'am, I'll fix your fence right up. Just need a plate of food and a place to sleep," the man said, adjusting his dark hat. "Fine, but I expect real work. No fooling around," Rebecca replied, crossing her arms. "My name's Rebecca. And yours?" "Name's Nathan, ma'am. Nathan Miller." Rebecca showed him where the tools were in the barn and pointed out the fence that needed the most repairs. Nathan nodded silently and got to work right away. She went back to the house thinking she'd made a good deal. After all, she'd gotten cheap labor when she needed it most. But something strange happened on that very first day. Nathan worked as if he knew every inch of that place. He didn't ask where to find wire, didn't need directions on what wood to use. He picked the right tools without hesitation and chose the best spots to reinforce the fence like someone who'd done the job hundreds of times on that very property. From the kitchen window, Rebecca watched, puzzled. The man had paused in front of a specific oak tree in the middle of the pasture and stood there, as if talking to someone invisible. After a few minutes, he went back to work with even more energy. "What a strange man," she murmured, stirring the beans on the stove. By the end of the first day, the fence wasn't just fixed. It was better than it had been in years. Nathan had used techniques Rebecca didn't know, creating a stronger, more durable structure. When she brought him dinner in the barn, she noticed his eyes were red as if he'd been crying. "Food good, Nathan?" "Delicious, Mrs. Wilson. Been a long time since I've had a home-cooked meal like this." "You got family around here?" Nathan stopped chewing and stayed silent for a long moment. "Had some once, but that was a long time ago." The vague answer only made Rebecca more curious, but she decided not to push. What mattered was that the man worked hard and didn't cause trouble. On the second day, Nathan started fixing things Rebecca didn't even know were broken. He uncovered an old water pump, buried for years, and got it working again. He repaired the old windmill that hadn't run since before her husband passed. "How do you know these things were here?" she asked, watching clean water gush from the pump. "You said I could fix anything that was broken," Nathan replied, avoiding her gaze. "But I didn't even know the pump existed. It's been buried for decades. I saw the pipes sticking out and figured there might be something down there." The explanation didn't satisfy Rebecca, but she was too grateful for the repairs to question him further. The ranch was getting better with each passing day. Now, dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now back to the story. Susan Miller, the closest neighbor and known for spreading gossip all over the area, showed up on the afternoon of the third day. She watched Nathan work for a few minutes before approaching Rebecca. "Neighbor, do you know who that man is?" "He's a ranch hand I hired to do some repairs," answered Rebecca, wiping her hands on her apron. "But don't you think it's strange how quickly he's fixing everything? And that habit of his standing by that tree?" Rebecca looked in the direction Susan pointed and saw Nathan once again standing motionless in front of the old oak tree in the middle of the pasture. This time she noticed he touched the trunk with an almost reverent gentleness. "He's a good worker, Susan. That's what matters." "I don't trust these strangers who show up out of nowhere, Rebecca. You should be more careful being a woman alone. He hasn't given me any reason to doubt him. Not yet, but these drifters always have ulterior motives, mark my words." After Susan left, Rebecca couldn't shake her friend's words from her mind. She watched Nathan more closely for the rest of the afternoon and noticed details she'd overlooked before. The man knew the exact path to every corner of the property, never hesitated about where to find anything, and worked with a dedication that went beyond the ordinary. That night at dinner, she decided to try to learn more about the ranch hand's past. "Nathan, have you worked on a ranch before?" "Yes, ma'am. I've worked in many places." And where did you come from now? Montana. Spent a few years there. Family there? No, ma'am, I don't have family anywhere. The sadness in his voice was unmistakable, and Rebecca felt a pang of guilt for asking so many questions. But there was something in the way Nathan spoke that didn't seem entirely truthful. Do you know this area well? It seems like you've been here before. Nathan stopped eating and stared at his plate for a long time. I do, Mrs. Wilson. I was around these parts a long time ago. When? Just a boy. I barely remember. But Rebecca could tell he remembered very well. There was too much emotion in his voice for it to be just a vague childhood memory. On the fourth day, a fierce storm hit the region in the early hours. Rebecca woke to the sound of wind and rain, worried about damage to the buildings. To her surprise, she saw Nathan running back and forth, specifically protecting the oldest barn on the property. She threw on a coat and went out to help. She found Nathan on the barn's roof, desperately fastening loose shingles. The rain lashed at his face, but he didn't seem to care. Nathan, get down from there. It's dangerous. I can't let this barn be destroyed, Mrs. Wilson, he shouted over the storm. Why, there are newer barns. This one is special. Rebecca didn't understand why an old barn would be more important than the other buildings, but she helped Nathan protect it. As they worked, she caught him silently crying while adjusting a wooden beam. Between the raindrops, she could swear she heard him murmuring names. Robert, forgive me, brother. I should have come back sooner. The words were nearly drowned out by the storm, but Rebecca heard them clearly. Robert was the name of her late husband. When the storm passed, they were both soaked and exhausted. Nathan seemed emotionally shaken, avoiding Rebecca's gaze. Nathan, what did you say up there? Nothing, Mrs. Wilson, just the sound of the rain. I heard you say the name Robert. The man turned pale and quickly walked away toward the barn where he slept. Rebecca stood frozen in the middle of the yard, her heart racing. Could there be some connection between Nathan and her late husband? The next day, Nathan worked in complete silence. He fixed an old internal fence that divided the pastures, repaired the barn door that had protected them during the storm, and organized tools that had been stored away for years. Every movement of his showed an intimate knowledge of the property that couldn't be explained by simple observation. Rebecca decided to investigate on her own. She went to the office where Robert kept his papers and began sifting through old documents. She found certificates, cattle sale contracts, business correspondence, but nothing that clarified the situation. It was when she opened a drawer she had never touched before that she found something interesting. At the bottom, beneath several yellowed papers, was an old black and white photograph. The image showed two boys hugging in front of the same tree where Nathan always stopped. One of the boys was clearly Robert as a child. She recognized his eyes and smile. But the other boy, smaller and thinner, she didn't know. On the back of the photo, in Robert's handwriting, it read, "Me and Nathan, 1978. Last happy summer." Rebecca sank heavily into the chair. Nathan wasn't just some stranger. There was some old connection between him and Robert, something that went back to their childhood. She tucked the photo into her apron pocket and went to find Nathan. She found him in the old barn, stacking hay bales with unnecessary care for such a simple task. "Nathan, I need to talk to you." He didn't answer, continuing to work as if he hadn't heard. "Nathan." This time he stopped but didn't turn to face her. "I found something you need to see." Rebecca pulled the photograph from her pocket and held it out to him. Nathan turned slowly, and when he saw the image, his legs seemed to give way. He leaned against one of the barn beams, his eyes filling with tears. Where did you find this?" "In Robert's papers. Are you going to tell me who you really are?" Nathan held the photo with trembling hands, running his fingers over the two smiling boys. I can't talk about this now." "Yes, you can. You're on my property, eating my food, and I have a right to know who you are." Nathan bolted from the barn toward the pasture. Rebecca followed, but he was faster. When she finally caught up to him, he was standing under the tree from the photograph, sobbing uncontrollably. "Nathan, tell me the truth. Who are you?" Between tears and broken words, Nathan began to speak. I was Robert's younger brother." The revelation hit Rebecca like lightning. Robert had never mentioned having a brother. In 15 years of marriage, he had always said he was an only child. That's impossible. Robert didn't have a brother. He did, but the family cast me out when I was still a teenager. There was a terrible fight over our father's inheritance. Robert took the elders' side, and I was sent away. I never came back. Why did Robert never speak of you? Because I did things I regret, said things that hurt everyone. When I left here, I swore I'd never return. Then why come back now? Nathan wiped his face with his sleeve and looked directly at Rebecca for the first time. Because I heard that Robert was gone, and I couldn't stay away knowing he left without me ever getting to say I'm sorry. Rebecca felt her legs weaken. She sat on the ground, leaning against the tree, trying to process everything. The man she had hired by chance was the brother-in-law she never knew, someone Robert had hidden from her their entire marriage. Robert suffered because of you, Nathan. He never said it outright, but I could see a sadness in him I never understood. I've suffered all these years too. I spent 40 years working on ranches all over the country, always thinking about this place, always wanting to come back to ask for forgiveness. But my pride was stronger than the longing. And what changed now? The news that he had passed. Then I realized I couldn't wait any longer. I had to come see this place one last time, even if it was just to cry under this tree where we used to play as kids. Rebecca looked at the tree and then at Nathan. She was starting to understand why he knew every detail of the property, why he worked with such dedication, why he protected the old barn as if it were a treasure. You grew up here. I was born here. I helped my father and Robert build half these fences. That barn I protected yesterday was where we kept the first cattle we bought together. Every piece of this place holds a memory of mine. Tears welled up in Nathan's eyes again, but this time he didn't try to hide them. And when were you planning to tell me this? Never. I just wanted to fix what was broken and leave. It was my way of honoring my brother's memory without causing trouble for anyone. Without causing trouble, Nathan, your family. Robert was my husband. That makes you my brother-in-law. No, Mrs. Wilson. The family kicked me out 40 years ago. I have no right to anything here anymore. That's for me to decide now, and I say you do. Nathan looked at her in surprise, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Rebecca stood up and brushed the dirt off her skirt. She'd made up her mind. You're staying for dinner tonight, and we're going to talk properly about all this. Mrs. Wilson, I can't... Yes, you can. I won't take no for an answer. While preparing dinner, Rebecca couldn't stop thinking about how all the pieces now fit together. Nathan's skills, his knowledge of the property, the emotion he put into every repair. He wasn't just fixing fences and barns, he was trying to fix his own life. When they sat down to eat, Rebecca served the best meal she could make. Nathan ate in silence, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Now you're going to tell me the whole story, from the beginning. Nathan took a deep breath and began. My father bought this ranch when Robert was 12 and I was 8. We were very close back then, did everything together. Robert taught me to ride, to handle cattle, to fix fences. He was my hero. What happened to drive you apart? When Dad got sick, 42 years ago, he made a will leaving most of the property to Robert since he was the oldest, but he set aside a small part for me too. I was young and stupid. I thought I deserved half of everything. I got angry, argued with everyone. And then? Robert tried to convince me to accept Dad's decision, said that when he took over, we'd work together just like before. But I was blind with rage. I said horrible things to him, accused him of stealing from me, of turning Dad against me. And the family decided to kick you out. Actually, I left on my own. In a terrible argument, I said I wanted nothing more to do with the family, that I was leaving and never coming back. Robert tried to stop me, but my mind was made up. I grabbed my bag and left without looking back. Rebecca could see the pain in Nathan's eyes as he relived those moments. Did you regret it later? The same day, but my pride wouldn't let me go back. I spent weeks camped out in a nearby town, waiting for someone from the family to come get me. No one came. Did you try to go back on your own? I tried once, about 6 months later. I made it all the way to the ranch gate, but when I saw Robert working in the pasture, I didn't have the courage to go in. I thought he'd send me away again. And what did you do all these years? I worked on farms all over the country. Montana, Wyoming, Georgia, Texas. Learned cattle raising techniques, farming, land management. Always saving every penny, always thinking one day I'd gather the courage to come back. Why didn't you ever return? With each passing year, it got harder. Then I started hearing news about the area from other ranch hands. Found out Robert had gotten married, that the ranch was thriving. I figured he was better off without me. He wasn't, Nathan. Robert carried a sadness I never fully understood. Now I know it was because of you. Nathan stopped eating and just stared at Rebecca. You're sure about that? I am. He didn't talk much about family, but when he did, it always felt like he was hiding something. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at that tree with such a sad expression. That tree was our favorite spot when we were kids. We'd climb it to watch the sunset, plan what our futures would be like when we grew up. And when did you find out Robert had passed? A ranch hand who worked here stopped by the farm where I was last year. He told me. I couldn't work right for 2 weeks after that. Then I decided I had to come, even if it was just to cry at his grave. Did you go to the cemetery? I did. Before coming here. Spent hours there asking for forgiveness, telling him about all the places I worked, everything I'd learned. Said I'd become a good man, that he'd be proud. Rebecca felt her eyes fill with tears. Nathan's pain was so deep and genuine it touched her heart. And after the cemetery, you decided to come here. I thought I'd take a look from afar just to ease the longing, but when I got to the gate and saw you struggling, I couldn't just walk away. Thought maybe I could help somehow, as a way to honor Robert's memory. You didn't give your real last name, did you? Nathan hesitated before answering. My full name is Nathan Wilson Miller. Wilson was our family name. I stopped using it because I wanted to forget who I was. Nathan Wilson Miller, my Robert's younger brother. Former brother. The family disowned me 40 years ago. The Wilsons disowned you, but Robert didn't. And I'm a Wilson now too. Nathan looked at her, confused. What do you mean? I mean you're still family, Nathan, and family doesn't abandon family. Nathan started crying again, but this time it was tears of relief, mixed with 40 years of pent-up pain. Mrs. Wilson, I don't deserve this kindness. It's not kindness, it's justice. Robert loved you even after everything, and I'll honor that love. They sat in silence for a few minutes, each processing the night's revelations. Rebecca looked at Nathan and saw no longer a hungry ranch hand, but a man who had carried the weight of regret for decades. Nathan, do you have somewhere to go when you're done working here? I've got a job offer at a farm in the Everglades. Was supposed to head straight there, but I made this stop first. What if I asked you to stay? Nathan held his breath for a moment. Stay here. Stay here. This ranch needs someone who knows the land, who knows how to work with love. And I need help keeping up the place Robert loved so much. Mrs. Wilson, I don't have money to buy into the property or anything like that. I'm not talking about buying. I'm talking partnership. You'd work as the foreman, tend to the cattle, the crops, and share the profits with me. Nathan couldn't believe what he was hearing. You barely know me. How can you trust me like this? Because I've seen how you work, because I've seen the love you have for this place, and because my husband loved you, even if you didn't know it. How do you know Robert loved me? Rebecca stood up and went to the living room cabinet. She returned with a wooden box that Nathan recognized immediately. This was your treasure box when you were kids, wasn't it? How do you know about this? Because Robert kept your things here. Rebecca opened the box, and Nathan saw several familiar objects. A belt buckle he'd lost as a child, a pocket knife his father had given him, some photos of the whole family together. But what struck me most were these letters. From the bottom of the box, Rebecca pulled out a bundle of yellowed envelopes. All were addressed to Nathan Wilson Miller, but none had ever been sent. Robert wrote to you for years, Nathan. He never had the courage to mail the letters, but he never stopped writing. With trembling hands, Nathan opened the first envelope. The letter was dated 6 months after he'd left. My brother Nathan, it's been half a year since you left, and I think of you every day. I know our last conversation was terrible, but I hope you know I never wanted things to end that way. You're still my little brother, and you always will be. The ranch isn't the same without you. I climb our oak tree every week, hoping maybe you'll show up. Mom cries when no one's looking, and Dad pretends he doesn't care, but I know he misses you too. If you're ever reading this, know you'll always have a place here. No matter what happened, no matter how much time has passed, this is your home and I'm your brother. With love and longing, Robert's Nathan could barely read through his tears. He opened another letter from 2 years later. Nathan, today would have been your 21st birthday. I spent the whole day imagining what it'd be like if you were here to celebrate with us. Dad passed last month. Until the end, he kept asking if you'd come back to say goodbye. I'm sending a copy of the will with this letter. Dad never changed anything. Your share of the inheritance is still set aside for you. Whenever you're ready to come back, it's all here waiting. I hope you're well, wherever you are. I hope you found good people who care for you, like we should have. Your brother who never forgot, Robert. There were dozens of letters, one for every year that passed. The most recent one spoke of Robert's marriage to Rebecca, plans for the ranch's future, and the hope that Nathan would return someday to meet his sister-in-law. In the last letter, written just months before Robert's death, the words were even more moving. My dear brother Nathan, I haven't been feeling well lately, and it's made me think of you even more. Rebecca is a wonderful woman, and I know you two would get along. She has a big heart like yours and the same love for the land we've always shared. If I go before you come back, I want you to know I forgive everything that happened between us. We were young, we were proud, but what matters is the love we've always had for each other. Look after Rebecca if you can, look after our ranch, and most of all, forgive yourself for past mistakes. You were and always will be my little brother. With all the love in the world, Robert Nathan was sobbing uncontrollably. Rebecca stepped closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. He loved you, Nathan. He never stopped loving you. Why didn't he ever send these letters? Because he didn't know where you were, and maybe because he was afraid you wouldn't want them. I would have taken them. I would have run straight home. He knew that. That's why he kept writing, even without sending them. It was his way of keeping you close to his heart. Nathan held all the letters against his chest, as if they were the most precious treasure in the world. Mrs. Wilson, I accept your offer. I want to stay and take care of this place the way Robert would have wanted. Are you sure? This isn't a decision to make in the heat of the moment. I'm sure. I spent 40 years running from my past. It's time to face the future. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Rebecca smiled through her tears. She felt Robert would be happy with that decision. Then let's do this right. Tomorrow we'll go to town to sort out the paperwork. You'll officially become a partner at the Wilson Ranch. Wilson Ranch? That was the property's original name. Robert changed it to Miller Ranch when we got married. But I think it's time to go back to our roots. Nathan nodded, too emotional to speak. That night, he slept in the house for the first time in 40 years. Rebecca prepared the guest room, but first, Nathan asked to spend a few minutes in his old room, which Robert had kept exactly as it was. The next day, the two went to town to handle the legal matters. The family lawyer, Mr. Michael, was surprised to learn Nathan's true identity. I remember you, son. You disappeared suddenly about 40 years ago. Robert always asked if I had any news about you. He asked? Yes, he did. He even hired a private detective about 15 years ago to try and find you. But you moved around so much, it was hard to track you down. Nathan was shocked to hear Robert had actively searched for him. He never told me that, Rebecca said. Mr. Robert was a private man, but he never gave up on his brother. In fact, there are some documents here he specifically left for you, Nathan. The lawyer fetched a folder and handed it to Nathan. Inside were the deeds to the portion of the property that had always been rightfully his. several certificates and a bank account with a considerable sum. Robert deposited money into this account every year, as if it were your wages for working the ranch. He said when you returned, you'd be entitled to the profits you missed out on. Nathan looked at the bank statement and couldn't believe the amount. It was enough to buy an entire farm. I can't accept all this. Yes, you can, Rebecca said. It's rightfully yours. Robert always knew you'd come back one day. With all the paperwork settled, Nathan Wilson Miller was officially a member of the Wilson family again and a partner at the Wilson Ranch. But there were still obstacles ahead. 3 days after the revelation, Mark Miller, Rebecca's son from a previous relationship, arrived from the city for a visit. He had studied business and always planned to convince his mother to sell the ranch to invest in urban ventures. When Rebecca told him about Nathan and the partnership, Mark was furious. "Mom, have you lost your mind? How could you hand over half the ranch to a complete stranger?" "Nathan isn't a stranger. He's family." "Family? This man shows up out of nowhere with some wild story. He could be anyone." "I've seen the proof, Mark. He really is Robert's brother." "So what? That doesn't give him the right to show up 40 years later and take over everything." Nathan was present during the argument and tried to intervene. "Mark, I understand your concern. If you want, I can leave." "Yes, you should. We don't need any drifters here." "Mark," Rebecca scolded her son, "Nathan is family now, and you will respect that." "Family? Mum, you barely know this man. What if he's a con artist? And what if he made up this whole story to steal the property?" The accusation stung Nathan, who left the room in silence. Rebecca was furious with her son. "Mark Miller, you're being unfair and prejudiced." "I'm being realistic. You're a woman alone. It's easy to take advantage of you." "I'm not stupid, Mark. I saw the letters, the photos, the documents. Those things can be faked. Mum, this ranch is worth a fortune. It's not hard for someone to spin a tale to get their hands on it." The argument went on for hours, with Mark growing more convinced that Nathan was an imposter. Rebecca, on the other hand, defended her brother-in-law fiercely. That night, Mark went to see Nathan in the barn where he was staying temporarily. "Listen here, you opportunist. I don't know what game you're playing, but I won't let you fool my mother." "I'm not fooling anyone, Mark." "Of course you are. You show up with this story about a long-lost brother right when Mom's struggling financially. What a coincidence, huh?" "It's not a coincidence. I came because I heard Robert had passed away." "Prove it." Nathan showed the birth certificate, old photos, Robert's letters. But Mark wasn't convinced. "All of that could be forged. I want a DNA test." "Fine. I'll take whatever test you want. And until the results come in, you don't sign any partnership papers." "Mark, I'm not here for the money. I'm here because this is my home." "Home? You vanished for 40 years. If this place meant so much, you'd have come back sooner." The conversation ended without agreement. Mark was determined to prove Nathan was a fraud, while Nathan tried to understand the young man's hostility. The next morning, Rebecca woke to find Nathan packing. "Where do you think you're going?" "I'm leaving, Mrs. Wilson. I don't want to cause trouble between you and your son." "You're not going anywhere. This is your place." "Mark is right about one thing. I disappeared for 40 years. I have no right to show up now and disrupt your lives. Nathan Wilson Miller, you listen to me. I'm a grown woman and I know exactly what I'm doing. Mark is my son and I love him, but he doesn't run my life." "But he has reason to be suspicious." "He has a right to be suspicious, but he doesn't have the right to treat me like some senile old woman who can't make decisions." Rebecca was visibly frustrated with the whole situation. "You'll take the DNA test he asked for, prove you're who you say you are, and then he'll have to apologize to both of us." Nathan reluctantly agreed. He wasn't worried about the test results, just the tension that had settled over the house. As they waited for the test results, which would take a week, life on the ranch continued. Nathan worked during the day, always under Mark's watchful glare. Rebecca tried to mediate, but was clearly tired of the constant arguments. It was during this tense period that another complication arose. Hank Peterson, the foreman from the neighboring ranch, showed up with a well-dressed man in a suit and tie. "Mrs. Wilson, this is Mr. Frederick, an investor from the city who's interested in buying rural properties in the area." The suited man introduced himself with a strained smile. "Mrs. Wilson, I've heard you might be interested in selling this property." "Who told you that?" Rebecca asked, surprised. Word got to us through some contacts in the area. I know ranches can be a burden for widows left alone. Nathan, who had been fixing a nearby fence, approached when he heard the conversation. Mrs. Wilson isn't interested in selling, he said firmly. Mr. Frederick looked at Nathan with disdain. And who are you in the family? I'm a partner in the property. Partner? Hank laughed mockingly. That one's just a ranch hand she hired a week ago. That's not true, Rebecca defended. Nathan is my brother-in-law and an official partner in the ranch. Mr. Frederick exchanged a meaningful glance with Hank, as if they knew something the others didn't. Mrs. Wilson, I understand there might be outside influences convincing you not to sell, but you need to think about your future. A property this size requires constant investment, skilled labor, expensive equipment. We've been taking very good care of the property, Nathan said. For now, Mr. Frederick countered. But what happens when a bigger problem comes up? A long drought, a cattle disease? Do you have the resources to handle those situations? Nathan was about to respond, but Rebecca spoke first. Mr. Frederick, I appreciate the interest, but I'm not looking to sell. I can offer a very generous amount, $5 million. The sum was indeed high, more than Rebecca had ever imagined the property was worth. She saw Nathan tense up at the mention of the number. It's a tempting offer, but my answer is still no. Think it over, ma'am. Over. That kind of money would let you buy a nice house in town, invest the rest and live comfortably, without worrying about cattle, broken fences, or rural troubles. This property isn't for sale, Nathan repeated more firmly. Mr. Frederick ignored him completely and kept speaking directly to Rebecca. I can put my offer in writing. Take some time, talk to your family. I'm sure they'll agree it's the best decision. After the two left, Rebecca grew thoughtful. $5 million was a lot of money, more than she could spend in several lifetimes. Nathan, do you think I should consider the offer? Mrs. Wilson, that's your decision, but I can tell you that price is way above market value. Someone has a special interest in this land. What kind of interest? I don't know. But when someone offers far more than something's worth, it's usually because they know something others don't. That evening at dinner, Mark heard about the offer and got excited. $5 million, Mum. Do you realize how much money that is? I do, Mark. But I also know this place means more to our family than just money. What family? You, me, and him. He pointed at Nathan. Nathan is part of the family, Mark. Not yet. The DNA test hasn't come back. The tension at the table was thick. Nathan ate in silence, avoiding the argument. Mom, if this guy really is Robert's brother, he'll have a right to half the property anyway. $5 million split in two is $2.5 million each. That's more money than any of us could earn working our whole lives. Rebecca looked at Nathan, who seemed uncomfortable with all the talk about money. Nathan, what do you think? I think we should find out why someone's offering so much for this land. Usually when the price is way above market value, something strange is going on. You're being paranoid, Mark said. It could just be an investor with deep pockets who likes the location. Could be, but it's worth looking into before making any decisions. The next day, Nathan went into town to ask around, trying to learn more about Mr. Frederick and his interests in the area. What he found left him uneasy. Mr. Frederick represented a major mining company that had been buying up land in the region for natural resource extraction. Rumors said geological surveys had found valuable mineral deposits on some of the local properties. When Nathan told Rebecca about the discovery, she was shocked. Mining? Here on our ranch? It's possible. Explains why they're offering so much money. But if there are minerals here, wouldn't it be better for us to explore them ourselves? It would, but mining requires permits, expensive equipment, technical know-how. It's a very high and risky investment. And if we don't sell, could they try to take the property in other ways? Legally, no. But they could pressure us, create difficulties, offer higher and higher amounts until it's hard to refuse. Rebecca grew worried. She hadn't considered that accepting Nathan's help might bring so many complications. That afternoon, Hank Peterson showed up alone, his expression more serious than usual. Mrs. Wilson, I need to talk to you. Go ahead, Hank. It's about Mr. Frederick's offer. Have you thought it over? I have, and I'm still not interested in selling. Are you sure? Because I've heard there might be complications if you refuse. Nathan, who was present, stepped forward. What kind of complications? Hank glared at Nathan with hostility. Stay out of this, stranger. I'm talking to the property owner. Nathan is a partner in the property, Rebecca said. Not yet, and he might never be, depending on how things unfold. What do you mean by that? Nathan asked. I mean people who show up out of nowhere claiming to be relatives sometimes have trouble proving it. The veiled threat put both Rebecca and Nathan on edge. Hank, are you threatening me? No, Mrs. Wilson. Just saying, sometimes it's best to take a good offer when it comes. Opportunities like this don't come often. And if I don't accept? Then you'll have to deal with the consequences. Ranches can have all sorts of problems. Fences suddenly breaking, cattle disappearing, equipment failing for no reason. Nathan took a step forward, clearly angry. Now you're outright threatening us. I'm not threatening anyone, just describing the usual troubles ranch owners face. Hank, Rebecca said firmly, if anything happens to our property, you'll be the first person I suspect. You're mistaken if you think I have anything to do with Mr. Frederick's interests. I'm just trying to help a neighbor make a smart decision. After Hank left, Nathan and Rebecca were troubled by the implications of the conversation. Nathan, I'm scared. I never thought keeping the ranch could be dangerous. It's not dangerous, Mrs. Wilson, but we need to stay alert. I'll reinforce security, set up some cameras, maybe hire a night watchman. With what money? We're barely covering basic expenses. Nathan hesitated before answering. I have some savings. I can invest in securing the property. Nathan, you don't have to spend your own money. Yes, I do. This place is my home now, too. I want to protect it. The next day, the DNA test results arrived. As expected, they confirmed Nathan was indeed Robert's brother. Mark received the news in silence, clearly disappointed he'd lost his main weapon against Nathan. Well, he really is Robert's brother, Mark admitted reluctantly. Now will you apologize to him? Rebecca asked. I was protecting you, Mom. Any son would do the same. Any son would apologize when proven wrong. Mark swallowed his pride and approached Nathan. Nathan, I'm sorry for doubting you, but understand my position. I wanted to protect my mother. I get it, Mark. In your shoes, I'd probably have done the same. But I still think you should consider Mr. Frederick's offer. $5 million is a lot of money. Mark interjected, Rebecca, we found out Mr. Frederick represents a mining company. His interest isn't in the property itself, but in the minerals that might be underground. Mining? Then it could be worth way more than $5 million. It could be, or there might be nothing at all. Mining is a risky business. But at the very least, we should hire a geological study to find out what we have here. Nathan agreed. Mark's right. It would be good to know exactly what's underground before making any decisions. That's when Rebecca made a decision that surprised both men. The two of you will work together to figure this out. Mark has a background in business. Nathan has hands-on experience. Together you can uncover the true value of this property. The proposal forced Mark and Nathan to collaborate, overcoming their initial distrust. Mark used his connections in the capital to arrange a discreet geological study, while Nathan handled the logistics for the researchers to visit the property without drawing attention. Over the 10 days the study took, the two men worked side by side, and Mark began to see Nathan's genuine dedication to the ranch. Nathan, in turn, recognized Mark's intelligence and management skills. Nathan, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why did you never marry? Never have kids? Nathan stopped fixing the fence they were working on and grew thoughtful. I guess I never really settled anywhere. I always felt my true home was here, so everywhere else just felt temporary. Do you regret it? Not having a family? Sometimes. But maybe it was for the best. I wasn't a whole man. I carried too much hurt, too much regret. It wouldn't have been fair to a wife and children. And now that you're back home? Now I feel whole for the first time in 40 years. Maybe there's still time to be truly happy. Mark looked at Nathan with growing admiration. He was starting to understand why his mother had trusted this man. "Nathan, I owe you a bigger apology. It wasn't just distrust because you were a stranger. I was afraid of losing my place as my mother's only son. Mark, I don't want to take your place. I just want to have a place too. I know that now, and I want you to know you'll always have a place here. You're my future child's uncle, if I ever have one." The two looked at each other and for the first time shared a genuine smile. The results of the geological study surprised everyone. There were indeed mineral deposits on the property, but not the precious metals the mining company had expected. Instead, it was a special type of clay, highly valuable for the cosmetics and pharmaceutical industries, one that could be extracted sustainably without harming the environment. "This means we can mine the clay and keep the cattle operation running at the same time," Nathan explained. "And what would that be worth?" Rebecca asked. "According to the report, it could generate about $2 million a year for at least 10 years, Mark answered. $2 million a year? Rebecca couldn't believe it. And that's while keeping the ranch running normally? The clay extraction won't interfere with the pastures or cattle. Nathan was smiling. Finally, there was a solution that preserved the ranch while also providing excellent income for the family. Now I understand why Mr. Frederick offered $5 million. If he knew the real potential, he'd probably offer a lot more. Or try other methods to get the property, Mark said, concerned. That's why we'll keep this information secret until we get everything legally organized, decided Rebecca. The three spent the following weeks carefully planning their next steps. Nathan used his savings to hire lawyers specialized in mineral rights. Mark handled the administrative and financial side. Rebecca coordinated everything, making the final decisions. During this period, Mr. Frederick showed up twice more, growing increasingly insistent. On his last visit, he raised the offer to $7 million, claiming he needed to close the deal quickly. "Mrs. Wilson, this is my final offer. $7 million cash, paperwork settled within a week. Mr. Frederick, as I've said many times, I'm not interested in selling. You're making a mistake. Rural properties are risky investments. A drought, a cattle disease, and your entire savings could go down the drain. I'm willing to take that risk. What about your partner here?" Mr. Frederick glanced at Nathan. "Is he also willing to lose everything?" "I am," Nathan replied firmly. "You'll regret this decision." After Mr. Frederick left, visibly irritated, Nathan remarked, "He's getting desperate. That worries me." "Why?" "Desperate people sometimes take drastic measures." As if it were a premonition, the following week, small accidents began happening on the property. The water pump Nathan had fixed mysteriously stopped working. Part of the fence was cut overnight, allowing some cattle to escape. The generator powering essential equipment was sabotaged. "These aren't coincidences," Nathan said after the third incident. "Do you think it's Hank?" "I think he's being paid to cause trouble. The question is whether we should confront him or involve the authorities." Rebecca was frightened. She'd never imagined running a ranch could involve this kind of pressure. "Nathan, maybe it'd be better to accept the offer and end these problems. Mrs. Wilson, if we start giving in now, they'll know they can push us around. And who's to say they'll honor the deal once they get what they want? Then what do? We document everything, install more cameras, and show them we're not easily intimidated." Nathan hired a night guard and set up a camera system in strategic spots around the property. On the third night after installation, the cameras caught Hank and another man cutting the fence and releasing the cattle. With the footage in hand, Nathan went straight to confront Hank. "Hank, we need to talk." "About what?" "About this." Nathan showed him the footage on his phone. Hank turned pale, seeing the evidence. "That could be anyone." "Could be, but it sure looks like you. And I'm certain if I show this to the local authorities, they'll agree with me. What do you want?" "I want you to stop the sabotage, and I want to know who's paying you to do this." Hank hesitated before answering. "Nathan, you don't understand. These people don't take no for an answer. If you don't sell, they'll find other ways to get what they want." "What other ways?" "They could challenge the property's paperwork, claim irregularities in the will, drag you into lawsuits that last years. They've got expensive lawyers and plenty of patience. And you think we should just give in? I think you should consider negotiating. Maybe you could get even more than 7 million. Nathan realized Hank was genuinely concerned, not just being greedy. Hank, do you know exactly why they want this property so badly? I know they did geological surveys in the area, found something valuable underground. What if I told you we've also done surveys and know what's here? Hank widened his eyes. Do you know what's underground? We do. And we know it's worth much more than they're offering. Then you're in real danger. These people won't give up that kind of money easily. Nathan grew uneasy at Hank's serious tone. What kind of danger? They might try to discredit your paperwork, question your identity, create legal trouble. They have the resources to keep you tied up in court for years, until you've spent every last penny on lawyers. And you? Will you keep helping them? Hank thought for a long moment. No. I'm fine with small acts of sabotage, but I don't want to get tangled up in anything bigger. I'll tell them you're well protected and not worth messing with anymore. Thank you, Hank. That means a lot. Nathan, you all need to be very careful. Hire good lawyers, keep all your documents in order, and don't trust anyone you haven't known for years. Nathan returned home with valuable information and more worries. He told Rebecca and Mark everything, and they were alarmed by the possibility of legal trouble. Maybe we should try to settle, Mark suggested. Ask for a middle ground, say 10 million, and put an end to this. Mark, if we take any offer now, we're giving up 20 million or more over the next 10 years, Nathan argued. But we'd also be giving up years of headaches and the risk of losing everything in court. Rebecca listened to both sides and made a decision. We'll speed up our plans. How long do we need to get all the mineral rights paperwork in order? With a good legal team, about 2 months, Mark answered. Then that's what we'll do. We can handle 2 months of pressure. Once we're legally protected, they'll have to accept our terms. Nathan agreed. And during those 2 months, we triple security. If they want a fight, they'll get one. The next 2 months were intense. Nathan hired a professional security firm to guard the property. Mark coordinated a team of specialized lawyers to prepare all the legal documents. Rebecca managed ranch operations, keeping things running smoothly despite the pressure. Mr. Frederick showed up 3 more times, each visit more aggressive. On his last trip, he brought papers claiming irregularities in the property's documentation and hinted his company might challenge their ownership in court. Mrs. Wilson, we've discovered inconsistencies in Mr. Roberts' will. Our lawyers believe they can contest the inheritance's validity. What inconsistencies? Nathan asked. You have no standing here. In fact, our research shows you disappeared 40 years ago and never contacted the family again. Legally, you could be considered disinherited. Rebecca was furious. Mr. Frederick, this is clearly intimidation. Nathan is my lawful brother-in-law and a legal partner in this property. Ma'am, I'm just informing you of potential legal complications. It'd be much simpler to accept our offer and avoid years in court. Our answer is still no. Then you'll face the consequences. After Mr. Frederick left, Nathan grew thoughtful. Rebecca, maybe he's right about my legal standing. I did abandon the family 40 years ago. Nathan, you have all the necessary paperwork, plus Robert's letters proving he never disowned you. Our lawyers say your claim is secure. But a lawsuit could drag on for years, even if we win in the end, and it'll cost a fortune. That's why we have to finalize our mineral rights before they file anything. Once we officially start exploring the clay, it becomes much harder to challenge our ownership of the property. Nathan agreed, but was worried. 40 years away from home could be used against him in ways he hadn't yet considered. The following week, something happened that completely changed the game. Mark, investigating the company that Mr. Frederick represented, discovered they were involved in multiple lawsuits over illegal land acquisition practices. Mum, Nathan, you need to see this. Mark showed them several newspaper articles about the company. They had a pattern, conducting secret geological studies, identifying properties with mineral potential, and then using questionable methods to force owners to sell for low prices. Look at this case in Montana. A family lost a property worth 50 million for just 3 million. The company created so many legal problems that the family ran out of money to defend themselves. and this other case in Oregon. The landowner was accused of environmental violations that later proved false, but the lawsuit dragged on for 5 years and he was forced to sell to pay the lawyers. Nathan studied the cases carefully. This is exactly what they're trying to do to us. The pattern is always the same: low offer, pressure, sabotage, then lawsuits to wear down the owners. But now that we know their pattern, we can defend ourselves better, said Rebecca. We can, and we will, Mark agreed. I'll take this information to our lawyers. If we can prove they're using illegal methods, we might even sue them for intimidation. With the new information, the family's strategy changed. Instead of just defending themselves, they decided to fight back. Mark compiled a full dossier on the company's illegal practices and submitted it to the proper authorities. A week later, Mr. Frederick returned, but this time with a completely different attitude. Mrs. Wilson, there's been a misunderstanding. My company received incorrect information about your property. We're no longer interested in acquiring your land. That's good, Rebecca replied dryly. I hope we can forget any disagreements that may have occurred. Disagreements? Nathan stepped forward. Are you talking about the sabotage, the threats, the intimidation attempts? I don't know what you're referring to. I have video evidence of all the sabotage, and I have documentation of every threat you made. Mr. Frederick visibly tensed. As I said, there were misunderstandings. My company is withdrawing from the area. Good. And we hope you don't come back. After Mr. Frederick left, Nathan remarked, I think our investigation into their illegal practices reached the wrong ears. They must be afraid of an official inquiry. All the better, said Mark. Now we can finish our paperwork in peace. And that's exactly what happened. Without the constant pressure from the mining company, the family was able to finalize all the legal documentation for the sustainable extraction of the special clay found on their property. 6 months after the day Nathan showed up hungry at the gate, the Wilson Ranch had completely transformed. The clay operation was generating substantial monthly income, the cattle were thriving in well-maintained pastures, and the property had become a model of sustainability in the region. Nathan had built a small but comfortable house in a corner of the property, where he finally felt at peace. Mark had left his job in the city and moved to the ranch, discovering he enjoyed rural life far more than he'd imagined. Rebecca, who had spent 2 years feeling lost and overwhelmed, now woke up every day with renewed energy and purpose. Nathan, she said one morning as they had coffee together, you saved much more than just our broken fence. How so? You saved our family. You brought Mark back home, gave me hope again, and restored Robert's memory in this place. Nathan smiled, looking out the window at the pasture where the cattle grazed peacefully. Truth is, Mrs. Wilson, you all saved me. I spent 40 years as a lost man. Now I've finally come home. Mark joined them at the table, bringing the month's financial reports. Uncle Nathan, the clay production this month exceeded our expectations, and the cattle are turning a profit for the first time in years. Uncle Nathan, Nathan repeated, smiling. I like the sound of that. My girlfriend from the city is coming to visit next week, Mark said. I want to introduce her to the family. She'll love it here, Rebecca said. This place has a special energy now. It does, Nathan agreed. It's the energy of a family reunited. That afternoon, the three of them climbed the old oak tree in the pasture, just as Robert and Nathan had done as boys. Sitting on the branches, they watched the sunset paint the sky orange and red. Robert would be proud to see how everything turned out, Rebecca said. He's watching, Nathan replied. I'm sure he is. Mark, who had learned to cherish these family moments, asked, Uncle Nathan, do you regret anything? Nathan thought before answering. I regret taking 40 years to come home, but I don't regret the path I walked. Every ranch I worked on, every skill I learned, every experience I had, it all prepared me for this moment. And now, what are your plans for the future? My plans are simple. Take care of this land, help this family thrive, and cherish every day I've been given back. The sun set completely and the three climbed down to head home. On the way, Nathan stopped once more by the tree, but this time he wasn't alone. Rebecca and Mark stood beside him. Robert, Nathan said softly, thank you for saving a place for me here. and thank you for giving me the family I always wanted." Rebecca placed a hand on her brother-in-law's shoulder, and Mark did the same. The three stood there in silence for a few minutes, honoring the memory of the man who had brought their lives together even after he was gone. When they finally returned to the house, the dinner table was set. It was a simple scene, but it represented everything Nathan had dreamed of for 40 years. A home, a family, and the peace of someone who had finally found their place in the world. "You know what amazes me most about this whole story," Rebecca said as she served dinner. "What?" Nathan and Mark asked in unison. "How a broken fence could change so many lives. If I hadn't hired Nathan that day, none of this would have happened." "It wasn't a coincidence," Nathan said. "Robert brought me home at just the right time." "You really believe that?" Mark asked. "I do. Some things in life can't be explained by logic alone. Sometimes love is stronger than time and distance." As they ate, the three made plans for the Wilson Ranch, expanding the cattle operation, improving the infrastructure, maybe even opening the property for agritourism. But most importantly, they planned it all together as a real family. Later that night, Nathan walked to his small house, but before going inside, he glanced once more at the main house, where Rebecca and Mark still talked on the porch. 40 years ago, he had left that place angry and hurt. Now he returned with gratitude and love. He opened the drawer of the dresser where he kept his few belongings and took out the last letter Robert had written to him. He had already read it dozens of times, but still found comfort in his brother's words. "My dear brother Nathan, wherever you are, know that you'll always have a place here. This land needs you, this family needs you, and I need your forgiveness. Come home when you're ready. We'll be waiting." Nathan folded the letter carefully and put it away again. Tomorrow would be another day of work on the land that had always been his, alongside the family he had finally reunited with. And for the first time in 40 years, he would sleep with his heart completely at peace. The next morning, he woke to the familiar sound of cattle and the scent of dew-damp earth. He looked out the window and saw Rebecca already tending to the chickens in the yard, while Mark checked the mining equipment. It was a simple routine, but it represented everything he had ever wanted: purpose, family, and the feeling of being exactly where he was meant to be. Nathan got dressed and headed out for another day of work at the Wilson Ranch. But this time he wasn't just a hungry ranch hand fixing a broken fence. He was a man who had found his way back home and was determined never to lose himself again. The end. Now tell me, what did you think of this story of reunion and forgiveness? Did Nathan make the right choice by coming home after all this time? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And if this story touched your heart as much as it touched ours, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other moving stories.